Hi pretty people, welcome back to my channel. This is all the books I've read in 2022. I have here all the books that I have read in 2022, and I need to put them in order so that this whole video makes somewhat sense. We have quite a lot of books to get through, so let's just start right off the bat. I'll try not to ramble along for too long about these individual paper stacks. This is the first book I've read, and actually all of these count as one book because this is a fan fiction, and yes, I know it's a fan fiction, but yes, I did count them as a full book. This is 3 hefty books, so yes, I did count them to my Goodreads goal and counted them as one book. Just to give you like a little insight, I know they're like heavily over-tabbed, please don't ask me about that. But to give you a little insight, they are just fully written in this absolute tiny font, and like all 3 of these books are written like that, in like this super tiny font. So yes, this is All the Young Dudes by Miss King Bean 89. Yeah, a fanfiction I did print for myself because I love the Marauders fandom from the Harry Potter universe, and I did want them to be physical books on my bookshelf. They are also heartbreaking and 5 stars. Book number 2 from 2022 was Speech Philosophy. Honestly, not too much I have to say about this. It was a great introduction if you want to like get into the field, but I thought sometimes a bit of background information about general philosophy would be really good to understand this in the full. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. Dead Poet Society, I don't know why I actually had to read the book to this, because the book is based on the movie. The movie is one of my absolute favorites. I love it. I watch it like at least twice a year. I guess I just wanted to have it as a book for the sake of it. Anyways, 5 stars. Next. Soll und haben. Shit, I don't know the English title for that. This is Debit and Credit by Gustav Freitag. It's a German classic about a very young man coming from a poor family and making his way as basically as a salesman in like the city. I thought it was a bit long and at times a bit too descriptive, but I still gave it like 3 stars because this is based like pretty heavily on the topics of morale and what's good and what's bad, or like what's right and what's wrong. Just you need to know this is from old-time Germany, and there's quite a bit of anti-Semitism in there, which obviously I do not support at all, so just be aware of that. I sadly could not find an English translation for the title of this book. In German it is called Der Erbförster, which is basically like a forest ranger, and it is about this forest ranger on like castle grounds. It's a tragedy, very old German tragedy, pretty classic thing. I thought it actually was quite funny because it was so over dramatic, but I guess I still want to watch the movie they made to this. There's like a black and white movie from like 50 years ago, and I think I would enjoy watching it because if it's as funny as this, it's not intended to be funny, not at all. It's a tragedy in which a father shoots his own daughter because he's like raging, but that's too fragile masculinity, I guess. Next was Diversions and Entanglements by Theodor Fontane, also a German classic author. This also is a drama, or like a tragedy, you could say. No, it's more like a drama, and it's about a couple that is sadly mismatched in their social realms. So like he is like a bit more wealthy and she comes from like a rather poor family, and they are dating for a while and it's like really cute and you get to know them as a couple, but then his family expects him to marry someone else, and it's about how he never got over this initial love with his poor girl. Next was The Midnight Library. I am intending to unhaul this, which should tell you what I think about it. I did not like it at all, to be honest. It is a book about someone not doing well mentally and maybe even considering not wanting to be here anymore, and then she gets sent to this like midnight library and she gets to pick different books from the shelves, and the books send her to different lives she could have had if she did make a different decision somewhere in her past, which sounds like a super cute concept, and I think the concept could have been executed so much better than it was, which is kind of sad. I think I gave it like 2 stars and I'm intending to get rid of the book. Next was Gen Z or Generation Z, which is written by Valentina Vapeau. She's a German influencer, and she wrote a book about Gen Z and how we cope with life, or maybe don't sometimes, and how we have grown up with social media and what social media has done to us and to our minds and to our mental health maybe a lot of times. And she also talks about politics and love, and she just talks about experiences from her life, and I really enjoyed this one. This was 5 stars for me. Next was Cinderella is Dead, a very cute YA fantasy novel, and it's kind of about destroying the damn patriarchy in some analogies, and like with a bit of magic, and simplified because it is YA and you like need to conclude the book. I think I gave it 4 stars because it was a bit too simplified for me personally, but great book for young girls. Next was The Song of Achilles. I think at the time I read this, I gave it 5 stars. Looking back on it, I think I would iterate that to 4 stars. It was good, but it was not like groundbreaking. It's a cute retelling of a Greek tale or of Greek mythology, but yeah, I don't know. It wasn't groundbreaking. Next was The Great Gatsby, a classic. I don't think I have to say much about this. To me, this was 5 stars. It was about building and also ruining your life. It was about love. It was about climbing the social ladder. It was about the sadness behind big parties and the emptiness in mansions. And all I can say is it deserves its place as a world-known classic. Next was If We Were Liars. This book was 5 stars. This twist caught me so off guard. I don't want to spoil anything for you. It's about teenagers that are extremely privileged, but it has a pretty dark twist that you would not expect, and definite recommendation from me here. That is one that I unhauled, so you have to make do with the cover right here. What can I say about this book? It is a bit weird, and it's about this woman, like young woman, and her home is being invaded, and in her, like, she faints. It's a really famous thing in literature where there's like just 3 little dots in the story, and those 3 little dots represent a rape, and from there on the book like spirals. She gets pregnant from that one incident, and obviously she's telling everyone that she is untouched and no one is believing her because it's like late 18th century, so the whole I'm a holy virgin, I'm Mary with the next Jesus, that's not working anymore, you know? Let's go ahead. I also unhauled this one, cover here. It was my one and only Colleen Hoover that I read first to last page. I started a different one because everyone was like, oh, that wasn't her best. And I started a different one and I didn't like it either. I do not want to slander popular authors on here in like my second video, so maybe we just skip ahead to the next book. Next was The Daughter by Kim Hae-in, I think. I'm sorry if I butcher the name. It's about an older woman and her relationship to her gay daughter, which is an issue for the mother. It basically depicts her coping with the fact that her daughter is gay, but like not really accepting it, trying to come to terms with it, and also just giving us younger people a whole different perspective on life. It was a bit sad at sometimes. This whole book is just completely a stream of consciousness, but even though it made me uncomfortable at times, ideas or like a mindset that is so far from my own. Next was The Nutcracker by E.T.A. Hoffman. It's the original. Yeah, I just reread it and it's a girl in a fever dream. And yeah, what can I say? Next was The Secret History, and I have to say this is one of my all-time favorite books now, even though I have only read it once yet. I will definitely be rereading this beautiful piece of literature, and it was Donna Tartt's debut novel. Like, what? It was a debut and it is so amazing. She took 10 years to write this masterpiece and it shows. It really shows. It is so good. It is pretentious, it is dark academia, it is morally grey, it has unlikable characters, it has all the good stuff. So 5 stars for The Secret History. Next was She Gets the Girl. This is actually a book written by a couple and they have co-written this. It is written from 2 perspectives and both authors portrayed one of the characters. This is like a really cute, wholesome college romance novel. It is sapphic. Next was the Heartstopper series. I actually only have part 1 and part 2 as books on my shelves, but I did read all of the Heartstopper volumes that are currently available on the website, because Alice Oseman is like a very, very precious human being who just lets you read her art for free online. So if you haven't read Heartstopper yet and you do not want to spend money on the books, you can read it for free online. Next was The Cavern. This was a buddy read with my partner, and we read this back in the summer, I think. It's about an Australian cave system that is underground, and like a group of people going to explore this cave system and they meet something unexpected. It's a thriller and I did like it, yes. I think I gave it 4 stars. I've been exploring with thrillers and like mysteries because that is not my typical genre, but I've been trying to broaden my reading. Next was The Body Keeps the Score. This is a non-fiction book that explores trauma and brain development after incidents that may alter our brain chemistry, and it explores it. First there's just like a lot of educational information and input, and later we get to like explore what we were told on the examples of veterans and abuse survivors. This was definitely a big insight for me and did clarify a few things for myself. I would recommend this to everyone. It is a good educational read. 5 stars for me. Next was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This I actually picked up because it got quite a lot of hype, and I am happy I did pick this up. This was also like super easy to get through. It's about this little cute coffee shop that is super underground, also actually underground. And you can go back in time, but to go back in time there are a few very specific rules you have to follow, which does not make it too easy. Also 5 stars from me. Next was The Trouble of Being Born by E.M. Ciaran, which is basically a collection of short meditations on why living is painful or on why living may be miserable and is not the best thing for us humans. It definitely is very pessimistic, and you have to be in a positive mindset to digest this. Next was Girls Against God, which is a piece of Norwegian literature, and it is about, well, femme fatale feminism, I guess. But I have to say, this did not really resonate with me. At some points, I felt like reading an LSD trip. Just being honest here. Next up was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I really enjoyed this. I so loved this. Honestly, this was so good. I definitely need to read more from Taylor Jenkins Reid because this was so enjoyable. I flew through this in like 2 or 3 days. This is about a young actress from Hollywood in the 1950s. She's self-made. She worked her way from the bottom up. It is a sapphic love story, but as you can guess from the title, there might be some difficulties about that. Next was Honey Girl. Honey Girl, I think I gave it 3 stars. The idea behind this was good. This is a story about a young woman studying astrophysics, coming from a family where there's expected a lot of her, or coming from a father who expects a lot of her. Her mother is a bit more easygoing on her. This book had quite a bit of different representations, not only in skin color and ethnicities, but also in different forms of relationships and love. And I did like this because it was really refreshing. You don't have that in most romance books or like in most, well, young adult, new adult fiction books. Next up was Sally Rooney's Normal People. I mean, Sally Rooney really got a lot of attention in 2022, and I picked this up because everyone was reading it. Like, I am easily influenced on books, I have to admit that. And I am still not too sure where I stand on this, because it is a bit toxic. It is about 2 people who can't stay away from each other, but you feel like they don't even like each other, but maybe they love each other, and it was messy, but it stayed with me. And when something stays with me for as long as this did or does, the author did something right. So make of that what you will. Next up was Final Girls by Riley Sager. Again, another buddy read with my partner, and again a thriller, like you can see. This was also really good. I think I really do enjoy thrillers, and maybe I need to read more thrillers this year too. Maybe I will, because my partner and I definitely want to keep doing buddy reads now and then. So Final Girls is about 3 final girls, girls who are the only survivors from like big massacres. They're connected by something somehow, and maybe they have to be afraid of this connection, maybe not. Next up was All the Light We Cannot See. This book takes you along for 2 lives. It's the life of a blind young French girl and an intelligent young German boy. Sadly, they both grow up in the time of the Second World War, and it shows what influence that has on both of their lives. And I gave this 5 stars. The tower is growing, and it's also tilting. Next up was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. And I have to say I was a bit sad about this one, because normally John Green's novels are easy 5 stars for me. I really enjoy John Green's novels. I've read them in middle school, I've read them in high school, I'm still reading them now. But Turtles All the Way Down, I forgot about like most of the book. Like a few weeks after I read it, I was like, what was that about? And that usually never happens with John Green's novels. I had to actually read the back cover to remember what this was about. So I don't know if it's bad enough for a 2-star, because the story itself was not bad, but maybe a 3-star is too much if I don't even remember what the book was about. I'm very undecided about this, but sadly not as good as his other books. Next one was One Last Stop, which is also a sapphic novel, but this one includes time travel, and I gave this 4.5 stars. Warning, a bit too much PDA maybe. Next up was The Tower Collapsed. The Tower collapsed. So let's make it into piles, because towers collapse. Next up was the first part of the Love is Love trilogy by Sophie Bichon. This to me felt like too much of an age gap romance. It was basically a teenager who just finished her A-levels in school, going ahead dating a woman well into her adult life, but the difference was that kind of their roles were swapped. I think the author did this to kind of take away from the age difference in the characters, but it did not help to make the young person mature and to make the adult like clueless about herself. It was miscommunication trope, which I also don't enjoy. It's a book I'm gonna unhaul. Next up was Demon in the Woods by Leigh Bardugo. This is just an illustrated version of the backstory of the Darkling from her rather famous Grisha universe. I've read her Grisha trilogy. I've also read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I have also read King of Scars and Rule of Wolves, so the whole universe Leigh Bardugo created with the Grisha, and I enjoyed all of it, and so I just wanted to have this in my collection, and it is beautifully illustrated, so if you enjoyed her novels, this would probably be something you would also enjoy. Next up was Laurie. This is kind of a modern age urban Greek retelling. It somewhat had a Hunger Games vibe, but this was just like a rather mediocre 3 stars for me. Next up was Coraline. Coraline is one of my favorite scary movies. I know it's a kids movie, but it is super scary to me, and I just love Neil Gaiman, and his illustrations are beautiful, so I got this amazingly illustrated edition of Coraline, and can only say I'm in love. It's an easy 5 stars. After reading Coraline, I got into my creepy middle grade era, and I picked up Scritch Scratch from Lindsay Curry, and after that also The Girl in White from Lindsay Curry. Both are stories about girls around the age of like middle grade, and they have to live through some really creepy stuff, and you get to follow them along and see how they deal with it, and maybe ask yourself the question, is it a real ghost or is it not? Next was Giovannis Room. Giovannis Room is also a piece of rather sad misery. It's about this American going to Europe to discover himself and living in a gay relationship, but being so freaking homophobic. Yeah, you get to follow him along for a while and just see where his homophobia leads him. Still 4 stars for me. Next up was Citrus Plus. I did not realize that this was already the sequel to a manga series, which I have actually right behind me, that I have read in January now. It is a super wholesome, super cute love story about 2 girls meeting in high school. Yeah, one of the few mangas I have read in my life. And lastly, I finished one brick in 2022, and that was A Little Life. Let me tell you something about A Little Life. If you are prepared for a soul-crushing, gut-wrenching, sad story that just can make you bawl your eyes out, that makes your stomach drop, this is it. This is the book you need to read. But also, please do yourself the favor and look up the trigger warnings beforehand, because this book entails quite a lot of trauma and some topics that are very hard to digest. So do yourself the favor, if you're into sad books and you're thinking about picking this up, read the trigger warnings. Alright, that concludes my reads of 2022. I am so glad if you actually stayed this long, because I know I ramble way too much, so let's just wrap this up real quick. Thank you for supporting my channel. If you're still here, please leave a like, consider subscribing, tell me in the comments if you've read any of these, or if they are on your TBR now, or just tell me about your favorite books from 2022. I would love to hear about it, and see you next time.